Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining. I'm going to speak in English because I think we've got different people from different people who speak different languages. So I know, so there's different languages, different groups, but I'm just going to speak in a common language. My name is Rumbi Funzawabaya from Tulia, and we have been having a lot of inquiries um, with everyone panicking about proposed changes to the immigration rules, about bringing dependence, and so people are panicking and making applications so fast and quickly. And some of those applications are being made. We then get the refusals when people have made mistakes at the beginning, or they've just copied what somebody else has put and it doesn't relate to them. So that is causing a lot of problems. Um, and so I wanted to do this question and answer webinar Zoom call. We're here for an hour. If you've got questions specific, you can put them in the chat, or you can even put them directly to myself or to Tulia Group, the co-host. You can send them directly, or you can even that's probably best if you don't want to put them in the chat openly. But it's a question and answer, so I'm not just going to be talking, but talking about specific issues and just specific guidance for people who are on this call, so that I know that people are panicking and trying to submit applications very, very quick. We're supporting as many people as we can, but hopefully with this, there are some people who may not be able, we can't help everyone, but at least on this call, we can answer some of the calls and the questions. And the reason why I've done it on Zoom is when I do Facebook Lives, maybe some people are not free to ask their questions, or they don't feel that they can ask, and we can't go into as much detail perhaps. So what's happening now is, I think everyone who has been watching the news, seeing the news, there is so much talk about the immigration numbers, and they are many they didn't anticipate that there would be so many people. So last year it was 745,000 in 2022, and this year it's probably more. So the net migration reached 745,000, and so that's why there have been calls now and pressure for the government to put on curbs on this. So the problem that comes with immigration is always a political issue. It's a political hot potato. It's an issue that government will use to try and win elections. Government will use it to try and persuade the voters. And so when they put in tighten up rules, then they get some people who are anti-immigration to support them. If they change things, it then reduces numbers, or it looks like numbers are being reduced, and so it then helps them. So this affects people like care workers who've come from Nigeria, India, and Zimbabwe. Those are the three top countries, and it affects families, it affects relationships when the rules are changed. So one of the things that they're saying is they want to reduce the number of dependents per person, or to even limit dependence. They did the same with students, and they put that into place. So when they're talking like this on the news, and you hear that the immigration minister has made proposals and they're talking about it behind the scenes, and it comes out in the press, it's a sign of what is to come. But presently, no one knows for certain what what they are actually going to do. The government lost its case about deporting people to Rwanda. So because of that loss, it hit the immigration issues. So I'm just talking about the bigger picture so that we can understand the bigger picture. Um, So they are now looking for something. So, Suella Braverman, she had to resign. And then after that, they lost that Rwanda case. So the Rwanda case has got nothing to do with people on the care visas. However, it's all about immigration. So if they now talk about the care workers and what they're implementing, it's something they can control. That's legal, lawful migration. So they can control the numbers that way. So they're most likely it's going to affect, something is going to change. We don't know what, but dependence is one of the issues. And so that's why I'm doing this Zoom call today, just to talk about the sole responsibility and the number of applications that are being refused. I'd like to ask everyone to mute yourself so that I don't get muted too by the co-host. So if you can mute yourselves as you come in, please, so that we don't have um, so that we just have quiet. So the yeah, so the number of refusals has risen as well. And I was explaining to someone this morning that the immigration law and immigration policy is exclusionary in nature. So what that means is that they the rules are made to exclude people, not to include or to make it easy for people to come. So when your dependents are applying, you're taking it from a place where the rules are created to limit numbers. And so we have to make sure that when you apply, you are putting the best evidence possible, uh, depending on your situation. And every person's situation is different, every person's case is different. So the question that I'm going to start with, if please feel free to post any questions that you have in the chat. Any questions that you have in the chat, please feel free to put them so that as we go, I can answer them. But I want to talk first about families where the children are coming with one parent, uh, or the children are coming, or it's a single parent who is applying for children, male or female, uh, because families come in so many different shapes and sizes. We have single moms, single dads. You have blended families where people are divorced. You have cases where people are widowed. So there's so many different scenarios, and the one that we come across the most is that of single parents and the issue of sole responsibility. And that's the reason why many applications are being refused, because the Home Office is not satisfied that parents meet the rules. The mother meets the rules, or the father meets the rules. And so, what I wanted to just explain is, I'm sure people have, it's you've seen many refusals because they're always going around. So I won't go into what the requirements are, but we've dealt with this issue of sole responsibility for so many years, because the the wave of immigrants that came from 2000 to 2002, they many of them didn't were not able to bring their children immediately. So they were only able to bring the children from 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's when we did many of these applications for sole responsibility, for children to join their parents. And we had to explain this issue of sole responsibility, and it was difficult. And many cases ended going to court because the children had been looked after by someone else for 6 years, for 7, 8 years. So they'd been looked after by somebody else. And when the parent who's here finally got their papers, they were now applying for the children to join them. So it's a big issue. So they look at the separation. They look at how long you've been separated. They look at who was looking after the child when they were at home. And when they talk about sole responsibility, what the what what they're talking about is who is who has been entrusted, or who has been responsible for the day-to-day care and control of the child. So who is the one who's been responsible for that child on a day-to-day basis? Who makes all the decisions about that child? Decisions about where does the child live? What does the child eat? What does the child wear? Where do they go to school? What sports do they go, trips for sports? What church do they go to? What so it's who is the one who gives direction for education, who gives direction for medical treatment, who is the one who is responsible for that, and who has been responsible for that ever since, and who has provided the money to look after that child, who makes all the important decisions, and how much contact does the child have with the other parent. So the level of evidence that they want is very high. And I think that's where a lot of people are falling down, because people are trying to get a standard consent letter, a sole responsibility for a sole custody from court that's dated like today, and then they're submitting with the birth certificate and other things like a letter from the doctor, a letter from the school. But what they want you to show in your evidence um, is that who is the one since this child was born. So when we're looking at doing applications, you and you if you're going to do your application by yourself, look at describe your situation as it is. So if uri munhu akamitiswa, right, in Shona, kumitiswa in English, someone made you pregnant and didn't take responsibility, then you need to explain and show evidence from that time that I had a baby with someone, and then he didn't uh, pay any maintenance towards the upkeep of the child ever since the child was born. I'm the one who paid for Pampers. I'm the one who paid for creche. I'm the one who paid for the rent where we were living. I'm the one who paid for primary school. I went to parents' evening. I'm the one who took the child to church. I'm the one who went when they were sick. I'm the one who went with them to the hospital. I'm the one who did the day-to-day responsibility. So it's trying to be creative to find the evidence to demonstrate that. So it's for you to find the evidence to show that I'm a single parent. And it's important for you to say those things. So sometimes people will make the application but not actually say it. So you have to say that my child John was born on the 10th of this. I lived with my parents. I worked as a I used to do buying and selling in order to sustain my child's life. Whatever it is that you're doing, and this is the evidence of how I gained my income. This is where I lived. These are the things that I do. So that test, it's in a case. So there's cases like there's a case that's the standard oldest one from 2006, which is called TD Yemen. So it refers to the old immigration rules, but it's the one that is the guide for everyone. So it's about whether you, as the parent, have had control and direction for your child's upbringing, including all making all the important decisions in the child's life. So, have you had continuing control and direction of the child's upbringing? And we find in most cases that the parents would have. But because when people are making the applications, they're now going to look for that father who has not been there so that he will sign the consent letter. And then the father will write on the consent letter that we've been sharing responsibility. And if they write on that consent letter that we've been sharing responsibility and you submit it to the Home Office, then that makes life difficult for everyone. Because they'll say if it's shared, so this child, it's better that they live, we think it's better they live with the father. You don't meet the rules. And then we maybe have to challenge it or whatever. But it's important for you to say what you mean at the beginning and show the evidence to show the truth. So I've discovered sometimes when I'm asking questions from people that they were actually victims of domestic violence, they had to leave, or that the father is dependent on alcohol, he's an alcoholic, or that the other parent just gave birth to the child, left it with the and said, I don't want anything to do with this child. The mother has abdicated all responsibility. So if the person is not there, don't look for them. Because if someone is not there, you can't create someone and force them to sign things and don't forge consent letters for parents who are not there. That's another problem. Forging the document. Why? Don't. But explain your situation and your background. So that's why sometimes we post, please don't copy and paste. Don't copy. Because when you are copying someone's situation, you're even your situation might be compassionate by itself, but you're copying because you want to look for an easy way out. So I'm always saying to people, look at your case. Who has the day-to-day responsibility for that child? Who's the one who has care and control for the direction of the child? And so that is what they want you to prove when you make your application for your children. So it's not that single parents are refused just because they want to refuse, but they refuse because of what you give them. It depends on what you give them. What are you saying right from the beginning? So they want to understand who has the responsibility for the child's upbringing. And so it's a factual matter. It's a factual matter. They want to look at that. So that is important. I've done some videos on this on YouTube, and I think they'll be shared on the group because this Zoom is just for the people on the groups, I think. So it's easy for us. We can share it. But it talks about sole responsibility and the type of questions that you can do. So it's not easy. And I always refuse to give people templates because people will say, just give me a letter. But those no pins are trouble, just give me a letter. Because your situation is different from the situation of the person next to you. So your situation is unique to you, and you have to. So when you don't need to have a lawyer, right? If you can't afford a lawyer, you can't afford one. If you can't afford to wait like for any free advice that's there, if you can't find someone, then you do it yourself. But when you do it yourself, you ensure that you put the evidence that is relevant to your case. You put the evidence that's relevant to your case. You make sure that you detail chronologically from the time your child is born up to today who's been doing what. And you give the information to the Home Office that is relevant for your case. So please don't look for people who are not bothered. Don't look for them if they're not involved in the child's life. If it's just a consent out of courtesy, then you have to say it that I have not been involved in this child's life, but I'm just giving this consent because I've been asked to do it. But mom takes care of everything, or dad or the father takes care of everything. So that's a quick summary about the sole responsibility. But there's also compassionate circumstances, compelling circumstances. So when there's evidence of neglect or abuse, you have to give that evidence regarding the child. So it's important to say that other considerations that are also influenced. So you might have been sharing responsibility, but the situation in the child's life is very serious. Like the child is at risk of is destitute. There are unmet needs that need to be catered for. There's no stable environments for that child's care. And so we have to see that the situation, is there any serious or compelling circumstances that allow for the child to be admitted? So that's where your facts come in again. It depends. What have you seen? What's your situation? What have you given them? When you've come to work, the child has got nowhere to stay. The grandparents have died. You were looking after the child is sick. So you have to think of your situation and what can you put. So yes, so that is just a quick summary, but I'm going to answer questions. So I'm glad that there are some questions, and I'm going to answer. Oh wow, there's loads of questions. So right, let's start. The first one is, if the laws were to change, will it affect those already in the UK? i.e., both parents are in the UK, kids are still in Africa. So it's speculation, isn't it? And one of the things that is being argued is, um, generally, in my experience, from my own experience, um, they don't do retrospective legislation. So retrospective legislation is rules and laws that affect people backwards, affecting. So when you made your decision to come here to the UK, they allowed dependence. So you made that decision and you chose the UK as your destination of choice to come and work here because you knew that you could come with your family. And if they now change the goalposts, you've invested your time, your money, and you've come and you've invested a lot into this move. So usually it only affects people from a certain date. So if they say from the 1st of December, like people who are now coming on the visa, they cannot bring their dependents. Then you're making a choice to say, should I go and work in the UK, or is it better for me to go to Canada, Australia, or another country where I can take my children? But if you are already here, it's most likely that the rules that applied when you made your application are the same rules that are going to apply for your dependents. So does that make sense? So it's very rare for them to then say to everybody who's here, you can't bring your dependents. It won't work because we'll challenge it. Every lawyer will be happy because they will challenge that to say, no, you can't do retrospective. It's not fair, and it's in breach of, it's something that I personally, I don't think they would do that. I think they will start from that day, and that's what I've seen most of the times when they change the law. So they would start from people who are now coming to say, when you apply for your visa from this date, you can't bring, if they're going to say that. That's going to affect the number of people who are going to want to come here as well. So today there's been arguments that have been made, another report that has come out from another an organization saying, if we do that, then it's going to affect the numbers of people that we get. It won't make Britain an attractive destination for workforce. Um, so that then becomes an issue in terms of attracting people to come. So we're going to see, but there's a lot of panic, but we're going to see. So we don't know. But that's a short answer to your question, Fiona. And then the next one is, will this rule affect people who get visas after the rule? That's what I was just saying. We don't know. Yeah, we don't know. Kangelise was saying, can a dependent apply for their children from previous marriage? Yes, they can. Yes, they can. They definitely can. And it just depends on the circumstances again. So I've I've just recently welcomed my own brother who has got a blended family. So it's an application that we did. He's got a new partner, an unmarried partner. They've got a small child. She's got her own children from a previous relationship. He has got his own children from his previous marriage. Um, and so we made an application for everyone. Um, the mother, she travels quite often with her job because she travels abroad. So the girls, they were not able to stay uh, with with her on a permanent. So they made a decision that it would be better for them to come with dad. So those were our submissions, and we provided evidence for that, and they accepted it. So they came, they got their visas. Uh, so yes, but it depends what you say. It depends what evidence you produce. It depends on your circumstances. So yes, you can. You can apply for children from a dependent. So my brother is a dependent, and he's the one who brought his children from a previous relationship. So yes, definitely, that is possible. It's a complicated one. It's a complicated application, but it's important what evidence you produce and what you say. So for such a case, that's where I would say definitely get advice and representation. Don't try and do it on your own. Even when I did the application, it took 6 months for us to get a decision. 6 months we waited. So because it was more complex with blended families. So definitely it's something that you can do as long as the children are under 18. Next one is from Joanna. I've been in a relationship for the past 2.5 years now, getting married. What do I need to apply for my spouse's visa? We have no children. So, for your spouse, you've been in a relationship for 2.5 years and you're now getting married. So, you need to produce your marriage certificate and also proof of your relationship. So, with marriages, it's mainly just he has to get a police clearance, and then you've got your marriage certificate. If you were living together in Zimbabwe for the 2.5 years, just add that as evidence as well, that you were living together and you've been together for a while. But you don't need to have been together for a while, because people get married, like people from Islamic countries, they have arranged marriages and they just see each other on the day of the wedding. So what they want to know is your marriage is genuine and it's not a fake marriage, and it's not a marriage that is for convenience, because those are the marriages which are problematic. Uh, so, because the problems can happen at the border when somebody's coming in and they ask questions, and then it causes problems. So that can be a problem. But just generally, for a marriage visa, you're married, it's your marriage certificate, obviously your COS, and that you're working. And if they've ticked maintenance, your sponsor, then you don't have to worry about showing maintenance. But if you have to show maintenance, then those are further requirements. But that is fairly straightforward. If you're married. If you're not married, I'm going to answer that as well at the same time. Then you're an unmarried partner. They want to uh they want to you to show that you've lived together for 2 years, a minimum of 2 years, in a relationship that is similar to a marriage. So you don't have to you don't have to be married if you've lived together for 2 years, because sometimes people can't get married for, maybe some are still married and they haven't divorced. Maybe some people coming from Zim are gay and they're in a same sex relationship. They've lived together for 2 years, but they can't get married, but they can still apply for a visa as a partner. So they have to show evidence that they've lived together. So the type of evidence is like that you've been living at the same address. So proof of address, bills that come to your address, bank statements, nyarads or funeral plan, um, any other car insurance, car, mutero tax. So things like all the official documents which show that you've been living together at the same address in a relationship that is like marriage. So, but if you are married, then your marriage certificate is enough. So it's not you have to do both, that you have to show 2 years plus a marriage certificate. It's either or. So I hope that's answered the question, Joanna. Loveness. Right, I'm going to read that. Ah. So it's sad because your document had a mistake and you didn't see it. And you can do an administrative review, but most like so with administrative review, you're also saying the caseworker made a mistake. But based on the documents that were presented to them, they didn't make a mistake, because the documents, they look fake, isn't it? And that's the biggest problem that we're having with the sole responsibility documents, because people are getting them like in days. And some of them will show they're fake. So that causes a problem in whether they accept our documents generally from, certain countries. So there's certain countries where they don't even accept the documents because there's too much fraud that happens. So unfortunately, yours, the one with that mistake, which was a date in the future, if you do the admin review, I would advise you to make a fresh application. Mm, yeah, maybe it might be better for you to, because now this High Court document, and check on your refusal what they said, because, and yeah, you need to get it corrected, and you need the High Court to write a letter. If the, yeah, it's a bit of a problem. Yeah, so I think probably I would say make another application. Or if you would like to book a 15-minute consultation, I'll ask the for them to put, so I can just look at the documents to see what was said. But it's, yeah, that's a bit complex now. So I won't answer that completely now. But I think maybe think about it. It might be better to make a fresh application. And yeah, I applied for the visa for my son. I'm surviving parent. My husband passed away. Oh, so notable. If you can, the administrative review, it's taking long. It's taking a long time, 6 to 8 months, even 12. And they've actually written to say it's taking a long time. So for you, it might be better for you to, since you're the only parent and you've got the valid death certificate, I think it's better for you to make a fresh application than to do the administrative review because of the time that it takes. And also, if you hadn't submitted the death certificate with the original application, you would do the admin review, wait 6 months, and then they could say to you, but the caseworker who looked at it, they didn't have they didn't have the the death certificate, so they made the right decision. So the difficulty that is there with administrative review, it's not an appeal. Administrative review is not an appeal. There's a difference with an appeal and administrative review. So with administrative review, you there's you have to demonstrate or show that there was the original decision that was made was wrong. There was a casework error, or there was unfairness, or they didn't look at the decision. They didn't look at the information that you had given, so procedural failures, or they didn't exercise evidential flexibility. So it's not just an appeal to say please. So appeal is different from administrative review. So you have to say the Home Office made a case working error. And so where there's a case working error, that's where, so where a caseworker has not had a document because you didn't get your email, that's not the caseworker's fault. Does that make sense? So that's where now so, but with sponsored skilled workers, there is no proper appeal where you go before a judge and you explain to the judge that this is what's happened. But where you've got indefinite leave to remain and you're applying for your dependents, you have a right of appeal, and the grounds are different. So there's a slight difference there. So where you didn't send them the documents because you didn't see the email, then it's probably better for you to not to do the administrative review, but to make a fresh application. So even though they give you that right to do it, not all Home Office decisions should be challenged by way of administrative review because there may be no case working error. And so even if it goes to the people who are looking at it, they will still make the same decision and you'll have wasted all of that time. So I would probably maybe make a fresh application and send in the evidence that they didn't see, and that will help you. Yeah. What evidence can you send for proof of residence if one person is on the title deed so the other doesn't have proof of residence? So I think this is maybe people who are living together, like husband and wife, um, bills, if they've got anything that's arriving at that address. So if they've got documents that are official that arrive at that address, that is like also proof of residence. Ah, so Loveness, you said the Home Office, they refused your children's visa saying it was your personal decision to come here. What does this mean? You know, these home office, funny rough. I think that's the only way that I can say it. In some of the things they write, they are really, they do say that a lot, and especially where your children are over 18, for example, where you are saying, please, can our children come? They're over 18, they're 20, 21, they're depressed, we want them to come. And they'll say you made a personal decision. You knew that you were going to leave your child who's over 18. So it's up to you. You decided. It's you who made the choice. That's what they're saying, that you made the choice. So it's a real problem in that respect. So but I'm not sure in what perspective, what they were referring to. Is it your children under 18? So maybe it's better to look at it. Mm. Oh, that's nice. Sorry, iPhone user, I'm looking at your question. So your child is British. That's nice. uh, yes, that's the right process that the father did. So it takes a while, but he'll get his British passport. So that's really good. And that helps you. So the person with the iPhone, you said the father applied for the certificate of entitlement from UK, not from Zim. That's right. As the child is in Zimbabwe, that was the correct procedure. That's so don't be worried about that. It just takes a little bit of time, but it's good. Um, and so that's going to change your life as well. When your child has got a British passport and they come here, it now depends on what you want to do. Do you want to stay on your visa as a skilled worker, or do you want to change and go onto the visa of a parent as a parent of a child? And then you won't be restricted to work for one employer, and you'll be able to. It will take you 5 years to get to settlement, but you'll be switching from skilled worker. So it's something to think about when your child gets their British passport and they're here, and you have more options. So that's very good news. That's nice. Don't worry about it. It will take a little bit of time, but it's actually really positive. Mm. Yes. So my day, I'm reading your question. Oh wow. So your sister, um, originally on a COS which was revoked. A few weeks later, she got a new COS and her new employer, but she never got the details to apply for a new visa. So they do need to assign a new COS for her. They need to assign a new COS for her, and then she will use that to apply for her new visa. So it depends. You asked if she's illegal. Has she received a letter from the Home Office? Has she received a letter from the Home Office to give her 60 days to either leave the country or to apply for a new visa? If she hasn't received that letter, then she's not illegal if the time hasn't lapsed, but she needs to urgently ask her new employer to give her. They need to give her the new COS. So they need to assign a new COS so she applies for a new visa. So that's very important. The student, so somebody has asked me about the student visa new rules. Hey, those ones came as they were implemented immediately. The ones for no for switching. So the new rules for students. Um, they were for switching from student to COS. So you see, they've even given notice for students. They've said from January 2024. So they've they've given people time. International students in the UK will no longer be able to bring dependents on their student visa unless they're studying a postgraduate research program. And then on the same day, this was 17th of July, international students are no longer permitted to switch to the work route visa unless they've completed their course. So you see, it says international students will no longer be able to bring. So they've given people time. But now, so that gives people time to apply for their for their dependents. It gives them time. So and I think that applies to all students. So not just the students who are coming in, but all students won't be able to bring their dependents in. But that's effective from 1 January 2024. And so that gives those people who wanted to apply for their dependents to do it before the rule change. So that's good. Thanks for that question, SG. I think Mr. Marea, if you've lived together, I think I've answered that question in the past. And then Simon Jerry, I applied for a visa for my child, but I had a conflict with my wife in taking her birth certificate. I was recently convinced when elders gathered as a family and we took her birth certificate in April this year. My problem is when we took her birth certificate, they took the birth record when they gave us the birth certificate. I recently applied for my child visa and the Home Office are asking to give evidence that made us get the birth certificate of the child this year. Why her birth was issued this year and she was born in 2010. Yeah, so I think it's important for you to give every if you can try and get the birth record or use the yellow book, the yellow book for the child. So the child is now 13. So you need to just give an explanation of the reason, but also use maybe the immunization cards for the child, all of those records. Use school records to show the age, because the reason why they're suspicious is because people vanodzosera makore vana, so the child, some children who are like 20, the parents go and get a new birth certificate and make them 16, so then they're suspicious whenever there's a birth certificate like that. So you need to show evidence of the age of your child. Yeah. Yes, Yvonne, I think that's a quick answer to your question. Yes. Right. Stephen, I talked about this at the beginning, so I won't repeat that at the moment because there isn't much of an update. Mm. So, hey, right. I think so. We've got quite a lot of other questions, which I'm not going to be able to get through, which I'm not going to be able to get through today. Um, I'm not going to be able to get through them today, but what we're going to do is I'm going to save this recording and share it on the groups. And then I'm going to ask for us to just, for someone to just print off we're going to save the chat. And then the other questions that I haven't been able to answer, I'm going to answer them on the groups for you, because I did say I was going to be here for an hour, but I'm tired. So I'm thinking I'm actually feeling really tired. So I think I've answered quite a lot, and the rest of them I'm not going to finish them, but we'll do them, or maybe do it next week, and I'll take it from there. So we'll save the questions and then we'll come back. But these questions that I've answered today, we will record them, and then we share them with you. So thanks everybody for joining in today. And I hope I've answered and clarified for some people. Don't panic, please. Don't panic. Don't be too quick to make your applications before you've got all your evidence ready, because you think you might they will give notice. Whenever they do give notice. They do say from this date, and there's usually a lot of clarity. So it's important not to rise to panic, but to do everything, because once you've been refused, you can end up refused forever. So because we won't be able to clean it up. So thank you everyone for joining, and we'll come back. I think this was helpful. Um, yes, yeah. So there's some questions which we'll answer next time, but the one that came to my inbox, yes, you can switch from course holder to dependent if you get married in the UK. Yes, definitely you can. So anyway, good afternoon, everybody, and have have a wonderful uh evening. Today we've got a special evening session on mental health for carers. Please join in. It's on Zoom with Dr. Justice Marisa.